I'm afraid I must continue the digression until the next chapter. Along with my experiments in earth treatment, those in dietetics were also being carried on, and I may not be out of place here to make a few observations as regard the later, though I shall have occasion to refer to them again later. I may not now or hereafter enter into a detailed account of the experiments in dietetics, for I did so in series of Gujarati articles which appeared years ago in Indian Opinion and which were afterwards published in the form of a book popularly known as English as a Guide to Health. In English, as a Guide to Health. Among my little books, this was being the most widely read alike in the East and in the West, a thing that I have not yet been able to understand. It was written for the benefit of the readers of Indian Opinion, but I know that the booklet has profoundly influenced the lives of many, both in the East and in the West, who have never seen Indian Opinion, for they have been corresponding with me on the subject. It has therefore appeared necessary to say something here about the booklet, for though I see no reason to alter the views set forth in it, yet I have made certain radical changes in my actual practice, of which all readers of the book do not know, and of which I think they should be informed. The booklet was written, like all my other writings, with a spiritual end, which has always inspired every one of my actions, and therefore it is a matter for deep distress to me that I am unable today to practice some of the theories propounded in the book. It is my firm conviction that man need take no milk at all, beyond the mother's milk, and that he takes as a baby. His diet should consist of nothing but sun-baked fruits and nuts. He can secure enough nourishment both for the tissues and the nerves from fruits like grapes and nuts like almonds. Restraint of the sexual and other passions become easy for a man who lives on such food. My co-workers and I have seen my experience that there is much truth in the Indian proverb that as a man eats, so shall he become. These views have been set out elaborately in the book. But unfortunately, in India, I found myself obliged to deny some of my theories in practice. Whilst I was engaged on the recruiting campaign in Kheda, an error in diet laid me low and I was at death's door. I tried in vain to rebuild a shattered constitution without milk. I sought the help of doctors, Vaidyas and scientists whom I knew to recommend a substitute for milk. Some suggested moong water, some mora oil, some almond milk. I wore out my body in experimenting on these, but nothing could help me to leave the sick bed. The Vaidyas read verses to me from Charak to show that religious sculptures about diet have no place in therapeutics. So they could not be expected to help me continue to live without milk. And how could those who recommended beef tea and brandy without hesitation help me to persevere with a milkless diet? I might not take cows or buffalo's milk as I am bound by a vow. The vow, of course, meant the giving up of all milks, but as I had mother's cow and mother's buffaloes in mind when I took the vow, and as I wanted to live, I somehow beguiled myself into emphasizing the letter of the vow and decided to take goat's milk. I was fully conscious when I started taking goat's milk that the spirit of my vow was destroyed. But the idea of leading a campaign against the Rowlatt Act had possessed me, and with it grew the desire to live. Consequently, one of the greatest experiments in my life came to a stop. I know it is argued that the soul was nothing to do with that of one's eats or drinks, as the soul neither eats nor drinks. That is not what you put inside from without, but what you express outwardly from within that matters. There is no doubt some force in this, but rather than examine this reasoning, I shall content myself with merely declaring my firm conviction that for the seeker who would live in fear of God and who would see Him face to face, Restraint in diet, both as to quantity and quality, is as essential as restraint in thought and speech. In a matter, however, where my theory has failed me, I should not only give the information but issue a grave warning against adopting it. I would therefore urge those who, on the strength of the theory propounded by me, may have given up milk, not to persist in the experiment unless they find it beneficial every way, or unless they are advised by experienced physicians. Up to now, my experience here has also shown me that for those with a weak digestion and for those who are confined to bed, there is no light and nourishing diet equal to that of milk. I should be greatly obliged if anyone with experience in this line who happens to read this chapter would tell me if he has known from experience and not from reading of a vegetable substitute for milk which is equally nourishing and digestible. Part 9. A Tussle with Power. To turn now to the Asiatic department, Johannesburg was the stronghold of the Asiatic officers. I had been observing that, far from protecting the Indians, Chinese, and others, these officers were grinding them down. Every day I had complaints like this. The rightful ones are not admitted, whilst others who have no right are smuggled in for payment for £100. If you will not remedy this state of things, who will? I shared the feeling. If I did not succeed in stamping out this evil, I should be living in the Transvaal in vain. So I began to collect evidence, and as soon as I gathered a fair amount, I approached the police commissioner. He appeared to be a just man. Far from giving me the cold shoulder, he listened to me patiently and asked me to show him all the evidence in my possession. He examined the witnesses himself and was satisfied, but he knew as well that it was difficult in South Africa to get a white jury to convict a white offender against coloured men. But, said he, let us try at any rate. It is not proper either to let such criminals go scot-free for fear of the jury acquitting them. I must get them arrested. I assure you I shall leave no stone unturned. I did not need the assurance. I suspected quite a number of the officers, but as I had no unchallengeable evidence against them all, warrants of arrest were issued against the two, but about whose guilt I had not the slightest doubt. My movements could never be kept secret. Many knew that I was going to the police commissioner practically daily. The two officers against whom warrants had been issued had spies more or less efficient. They used to patrol my office and report my movements to the officers. I must admit, however, that these officers were so bad that they could not have had many spies. Had the Indians and the Chinese not helped me, they would never have been arrested. One of those absconded. The police commissioner obtained an extradition warrant against him and got him arrested and brought to the Transvaal. They were tried, and although there was a strong evidence against them, and in spite of the fact that the jury had evidence of one of them having absconded, both were declared to be not guilty and acquitted. I was sorely disappointed. The police commissioner also was very sorry. I was disgusted with the legal profession. The very intellect became an abomination to me as much as it could be prostituted for crime. However, the guilt of both these officers was so patent that in spite of their acquittal, the government could not harbour them. Both were cashiered, and the Asiatic department became comparatively clean, and the Indian community was somewhat reassured. The event enhanced my prestige and brought me more business. The bulk, though not all, of the hundreds of pounds that the community was monthly squandering in peculation was saved. All could not be saved, for the dishonest still plied their trade, but it was now possible for the honest man to preserve his honesty. I must say that though these officers were so bad, I had nothing against them personally. They were aware of this themselves, and when in their straits they approached me, I helped them too. They had a chance of getting employed by the Johannesburg municipality in case I did not oppose the proposal. A friend of theirs saw me in this connection and I agreed not to thwart them, and they succeeded. This attitude of mine put the officials with whom I had came in contact perfectly at ease, and though I had often to fight with their department in use strong language, they remained quite friendly with me. I was not then quite conscious that such behavior was part of my nature. I learnt later that it was an essential part of satyagraha and an attribute of ahimsa. Man and his deeds are two distinct things. Whereas a good deed could call forth approbation and a wicked deed disapprobation, the doer of the deed, whether good or wicked, always deserves respect or pity as the case may be. Hate the sin, not the sinner, is a precept which, though easy enough to understand, is rarely practiced, and that is why the position of hatred spreads in the world. This ahimsa is the basis of the search of truth. I am realizing every day that the search is in vain unless it is founded on ahimsa as a basis. It is quite proper to resist and attack a system, but to resist and attack its author is tantamount to resisting and attacking oneself. For we all are tarred with the same brush, and are children of one and the same Creator, and as such the divine powers within us are infinite. To slight a single human being is to slight those divine powers, and thus to harm not only that being but with him the whole world.